Hello, welcome to my leadership series where I interview leaders that I love and that has impacted my life. So today I'm chatting with Jerry, who I worked with a while at Nobel Biocare in the early 2000s, and he was the Eastern Area Director at the time. He has extensive experience, not only in various executive positions in sales, but also founded two companies. His love for service started when he worked in the family business, a car and truck repair business after school and on weekends. And he spent many years in the medical field until he moved over to dental. And he's been part of taking two companies public. He's led teams in the US, Canada, and Latin America. And in the past 8 years, he's been building and developing a new sales organization in the dental and medical sleep industry with its oral appliance therapy. I know Jerry to be someone who's a master at not only sales, but also connecting with people and making them feel special. He's a great leader who empowers and energizes his people to take that extra step in sales with him by your side. So, Jerry, I am so honored and excited to chat with you today about your experiences as a leader and the wisdom pearls that you've acquired over the years. So,
Oh,
welcome.
geez. That's a lot of pressure. Wisdom and pearls with me. I don't know. I'm kind of a aluminum and simplicity, but thank you very much. It was a very, very nice introduction. And, it's humble. I'm not like a Harvard graduate and I'm not this and that, but I am a student of people. And, as I start this interview, I'd like to reach out and say thank you to all the people I've had the honor of working with and leading, and many of them have become leaders, in fact, themselves. And I hope they've taken some of the pearls, if you will, that I've shared with them and perhaps influenced into them and run with it, because this isn't about me. It's really about those that I worked with. That was my true differentiator, I'd say, from other people. Like, it's about the company as a leader, and then it's about people as creating opportunity.
Absolutely. I mean, but that's the pearl. I mean, that's a pearl alone, Jerry, I think, because that's what great leaders get from the get-go, that it's not about them, it's about the people in front of them, whether it's your team or your customers and the experience you create with them, right? So if you were to look back at your career, what would you say were your drivers to achieve the success that you experienced both in sales and also as a leader?
Well, I'd like to add one more category to that, and that would be life. So what inspired me, I believe, was a combination of things. You had mentioned that, my father was a mechanic and my grandfather. I was supposed to inherit the business, but I was good at taking engines apart, but terrible at putting them back together. And so, but my father witnessed on how I worked with people when we were pumping gas. And he said, you've got a natural talent for dealing with people. I'm not going to give the business to you. You need to go to college and use that skill. And I'm like, oh my God. So it started back even, in those days in the shop, working with people. And like when I didn't just check their oil back then, I checked their battery fluid, transmission fluid. I was just over the top it to a degree. But I've tried to continue that same philosophy. And every one of those customers that drove into our shop, they were special. And, I couldn't criticize them afterwards. My father wouldn't allow that. He said, they're our customer. And so I've kind of taken that fundamental approach. I had all through college and everything else, a poem by Max Ehrlichman that was called The Zitterata. And, go placidly amid the noise and haze. But it talks about being sensitive and listening to others, and including specifically in his poem, it's a specifically or the dull and the ignorant, because they too have their story, which I said, thank God, because I have something maybe to say now. But I mean, the truth of it is I try to be an empathetic listener. And so I need to understand the dull and the ignorant as well as the brilliant to have a conversation and to find the emotional target that is going to drive them to the next step that they want, or that I'm hoping that they will want to go to. So
That's
goes
amazing.
back a long time.
That's amazing. So how do you manage your own judgments in situations like that when you interact with people that are, as you say, dumb, or people that are assholes, so to speak?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you called them that and not me. But but it's there's just times. My father also said you have two ears and one mouth, and if you can use them in the same percentage, you'll do okay. And so I had to train myself to listen more than speak. And so the dull and the ignorant, or the assholes, as you so aptly call them, they have a story, and I need to try to figure out, well, what's behind this person, and there may be some. I'm a sociology psychology major from college, so, and in the '70s, so peace, marijuana, I love the Beatles, all of that stuff, and it's just everybody has a story, and the only way you're ever going to be able to get to the root of it and make a connection with them is to have that empathetic listening, but you have to have the willingness to be empathetic. So I can't be right. I have to understand to be able to probe further and understand them. So one of my things, like with customers as well as my reps, or my team, I'm sorry, so I don't want to demean that title, because they're partners with me, but is trying to get to dinner with as many people as possible, or lunch or whatever, because break down the barriers and find out that they have a child perhaps that's very sick, or they have other circumstances that are impacting maybe the way they're just addressing it today, or maybe they're that way all the time. I don't know, but at least creates a empathetic point for me to be able to say, okay, they've got some challenges here, and I need to understand them and see what I can do to help.
That's great. You mentioned being empathetic. Not everyone is born with being empathetic, if you will. So what would
Don't we know that?
Yes. So what would you suggest for leaders that don't have that naturally in them? How could they approach building teams, motivating, etc.?
Well, before I get into a specific answer on that, and I do have a specific answer, I want to put out a caveat to whoever might see this or whatever, in that I'm going to be making general references to CEOs, CFOs, and they're all unique and they're all different. And I don't want anyone to hear something and think it's about them, because there's common things that override each one. So somebody's not saying, oh my God, he's talking about me. I'm not doing that at all. And and we have a whole bunch of them here. It's not, I guess it's the fact that I was, you'd be shocked at this, but I was, at 17 years old, I was 5'7", 130 pounds.
Wow.
And so, I went back to my reunion, and someone said to me, you're not Jerry Vogel. And I said, listen, if I was going to pick someone to be, it wouldn't be Jerry Vogel, So, so I think that I was forced kind of on the outside looking in a little bit. And, I wasn't complaining about it, even though I'm from New Jersey. It's perhaps that created a little bit more of a willingness, because I think anybody can be empathetic. I think that those that are not just don't want to be, and because they're so important themselves or whatever, that they don't feel the need to do that. But I feel a strong need to connect with people personally, individually, deeply. And, everyone's just a friend I haven't met yet. I know it drives my wife crazy. I'll say something about somebody. I said, oh, he's a really nice guy. And she says, you say that about everybody. I said, well, they are until they're not, but when they're not, watch out, because that's when the jersey comes out. But at any rate, so I think that empathy is something that can be learned, and everyone doesn't have it initially. But I did a lot of reading, in courses and things like that kind of cracked at the armor and enabled me to open myself up to say, okay, and that's why the empathetic listening to, go to my father's quote of 2 ears in one mouth and use them in the same percentage. It's not that exactly. It's using the 2 ears empathetically, because otherwise it's just words that you may not understand. And if you don't understand it, you can't get to the next step. So I think you can learn to be empathetic. And I think I did train myself, particularly with the sociology, psychology influence that I had as well.
Yeah, that makes sense, because it is about training your ear, right? To learn to be objective and listen with an open mind. And that takes you diving into yourself and learning about yourself so that you can be open and not be in ego mode, so to speak, as you were mentioning. That's interesting. So what did you learn from the ups and downs, like mergers and change in leadership and politics and all that kind of stuff? So how did it impact you internally and externally when you were going through these different ups and downs, or did it not affect you?
No, it absolutely did. You can't help but do that, really. So when you look at the C-level people, of which I've been for some time now, it has to be respected and it has to be followed. I mean, that's just the rule. And, so finally, when you understand and you get that empathetic understanding of them, and then you get a new group coming in, it's like, oh, I was just starting to understand what I was doing. I've got to start all over. So you hope that somehow there's a transition and you're given an opportunity to express yourself in a one-on-one meeting with that leadership and recreate that bond, if you will, and that commitment, because I'm an all-in guy. I mean, I'm passionate. I believe so strongly in the value of passion. And, so hopefully that comes across with new leadership and they give me the opportunity to be the most effective person that I can be, which will subsequently make them the best that they can be. Because my CEOs, my CFOs, I give everything to the company. And if they accept it, great. If they don't, I have to find out a different way to communicate it.
What would you say is a couple of those characteristics that are important to create this, so that that you're on board? Like, what is it? Yeah. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah. So to fully understand that they get it, that they have to be transparent, because if anything, I think what I have is an aptitude for seeing who's real and who's not real. And that's why certain people, including ourselves, have special relationships, because I see the genuineness of you and I respect that in everyone so much. And so if you have a CEO, for instance, who's all business, thinks he knows all the answers, and is creating a dictatorship versus a democracy, you'll flush that out pretty quickly. Excuse me. And you have to learn, just to work around that and get your team. So as a leader, the difference between leadership and management, in my opinion, is that management is at the micro level. Like, how's Pia doing? What can we do to make her better? How can we increase sales in her territory? What do her customers need, et cetera, and so on. Whereas a leader, you're torn. You have to learn more to be a leader. You have to learn, what is the vision? What is the industry thinking? What are all the adjunct things that make your company and you different than other people? And so you have to figure that out.
What about the softer sides, the human skills, would you say are important as a leader?
It's all about the human skills. Mm-hmm. If you're a leader and you don't have that, I think kind of getting back to your question, which I guess I didn't exactly answer, is that I think it's important, if you're a leader who doesn't have that human skill side of you, you need to find me. You need to find people like me who can build a network of people that will have their back. And you build off of that strength. But you just have to be cautious of, if you don't get transparency from them, you'll never have the chance to demonstrate that to them.
So what would you say are the most important human skills, if you will? I'm talking about, like, for you to flourish as a leader so that you can lead your team, what do you need from a human side? You mentioned transparency. What else would you say are important human things?
Confidence, direction. You have to be able to get them going in the right direction. You need to feel the feedback, and that's where the transparency on my side is. You need to get the feedback and support saying, hey, nice job, Jerry. Like, you say to me, nice job, Jerry, and pat me on the back. Okay, what wall do you want me to run through? No problem. I mean, it's really that simple, but I need that from them. And if they know they don't have it, I would hope that I could eventually get to the point of saying, them recognizing it and saying, I need you to be the emotional side of this company, controlled emotion, of course, because I'm the business guy, and so I would say transparency, which I associate with honesty, and passion, and their commitment too. So you can't just tell me to go out and work. I'm looking for a partner when I do these things. And if I need help, I want to be able to call my CEO and say, hey, I don't understand this, or it doesn't make sense, or the customers are saying this. I'm okay if you're saying that that's the way it is. But if not, we just need to come up with a good story,
Yes, I hear a lot about appreciation and trust, that those are important things.
Sure.
And transparency is part of that, of course. If you're transparent and you have, in your conversation with your people, you create trust. But you need to have appreciation. You need to know that you matter on any level to just get that extra push. So what did you miss earlier in your career that would have managed differently today with the experience you now have? In other words, would you have made different choices or decision?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I think the difference between, another thing my father said was, too soon old and too late smart, and that youth is wasted on the young.
Heard that one.
So it's, I learned that I needed to understand, if I wanted to continue on the path of growth in my career, I needed to understand better the facets of the other departments within the business. So, for instance, when I had my primary medical supply, my first company, I closed the biggest deal. I mean, I got a Columbia Presbyterian in New York as just a gigantic hospital, and I closed them on this unique catheter that I was representing. And I loved the product because it was unique and it saved time and blah 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 blah. And so I convinced them, but I forgot the fact that I was a distributor, and they wanted payment in net 30, and Columbia Presbyterian didn't pay for about 120 days, and so there became a cash flow problem for me, and ultimately it did drive me out of the business. But it became, I needed to understand business better. So I used to get the Harvard Business Review summaries that they sent out on a monthly basis, and I captured them and I read them in an effort to try to elevate my education, get beyond just passion and belief into knowledge. And you know how hard that is for me.
Not at all. So what would you say from your perspective are some of the essential factors to consider to be a great leader? We touched on it earlier, but also that creates, happy and engaged salespeople, teams, etc., and a company that flourishes and performs.
Ultimately, I think it's critical that you have a good understanding of the industry, the customers, and then the team around you. So, there's a term of people who have a similarity to you in the heart, and you have to be cautious of hiring all the people like that because you'll never learn the other side. And so, I think they need to be objective. They need to be honest with themselves. They need to understand the vision. They need to be able to project a clear vision, and then I'll help set up the roadmap for that. I mean, but I need at least that. It's like, okay, here's where I think and a conversation with them, like thinking where I think would be good for us to go based on my feedback from the customers, and then a discussion with them about that, and then crafting perhaps the compromise that goes with it.
Yeah. So would you say, like, and this is like a similar kind of question also, like the essential leadership qualities? We touched on it before actually a bit, but do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think passion is critical.
Yeah.
I think that empathy is essential. And I think knowledge. I mean, I have behind me, you may not be able to see it, but several books and all the courses that I went to for enhancing my own skills and taking team members along with me to some of these things to get us to think objectively and outside of the box. And as a corporation, it's important you understand all of those things. And at the same time, have an idea where you want to get to and when you want to get there. And then let's say, how fast do we want to go? And what are the values that we need to set?
That's wonderful. I love that you take courses and read books and continually expand your not only knowledge, but awareness, but they also take your team with you. So what would you say what are the courses that you've found have been the most valuable from every aspect? Because it's, investing in your team, I think personally is super important when it comes to performance. But
100%.
what have been your favorite courses? You don't have to name names, but it could be like, what are the type of courses, if you will, that you've invested in, both for your team, but also for yourself? And why have you kind of invested?
Well, sometimes, and it started out where there were companies I worked for who had courses, and we went to them, and my belief is that, I read a lot on my own, the psychology of the leader, the 7 strategic items, et cetera, and so on, by Stephen Covey and those guys. So I start with that, and then if I can come out of any meeting with a pearl, say, you know what, I get it. Take that note and go. Now that I'm getting older, it's harder to write and understand what I just wrote down. But
no.
So it's hard to say if one was better than the other. I mean, I went to professional selling skills, Cube Learning, which I brought here. That means the facilitator has to get everyone's attention. And I went to, let's see, I have a couple more. I went to values coaching, strategic selling. These are multi-day courses where you're deeply entrenched in learning. Every one of them and every day of those courses were extremely valuable. And so to pinpoint one and say, oh, here's the one where the light bulb went off, because I think I was fortunate enough to have the light bulb. It just never burnt as brightly as it could. And so you get those pearls that enhances the filaments around it. So it's hard to describe, but yeah, I'm an avid believer in reading business books, psychology books, sociology things, and I coached for so many years that I had to learn how do I take this poor kid who's enrolled in a program, and now I'm responsible for coaching them, and I had 700 kids in my program, so I mean I had to it was diverse, went from first grade to eighth grade. And
Wow.
same thing with my coaches. They may not have been knowledgeable. So I had to be able to assess at every different level the need to make the experience for the child to be the best it could be. Just ran into a guy recently, actually, and he says, "Hey, Mr. Vogel, how are you?" Or I think he called me Coach Vogel, and I had no idea who he was because I coached him 25 years ago. And he said, "Thanks for helping me find my way." And I said, "Oh, well, I'm glad I was able to do that. How did I do that?" He said, "Well, despite the fact that I was only 5'8", you told me that basketball may not be my best path." And, so he's a lawyer now, and he found out, so he's doing well. And so I think that flexibility and willingness to, again, be empathetic and to take yourself down to the lowest level, and then being able to be equally as effective at the highest level. And that's, I think, the challenge between a leader and a manager or just another, officer, is the willingness to go the entire spectrum of people and understand at each category. And in our category, it's knowing not only the customer, what are they thinking and what are they going through? It's what is the industry saying and what are they thinking and where do they think we should be going? And then, and speaking with those leaders as well and saying why and what can we do better? And it's sad to me that people just don't want to do better. Like, the status quo is an okay place to be, and it's not. It's not at all. I mean, that's when you die, the day you stop learning. So, thank you, Pia, for, continuing to make us learn and change and grow, and because that's what you're doing now. So thank you.
Oh, no, you're so welcome. And I think it's a lifelong journey, and hearing you share as well, that's what I hear from you as well, that we're never fully baked. I used to say, when I stop wanting to learn or being curious, it's time to just leave the body, because what's the purpose, if you don't grow? And every course, everything that you do kind of builds and provides different perspectives, but we grow, and that's the beauty in it all. It's having a natural high, as I like to say. No drugs are needed, so to speak, when you really get all the gold that we have inside of us, and then being able to contribute that, most importantly, obviously, to others. So how would you define a leader? And I'm not talking about, to me, it's not about titles, you see. You can be a leader on any level. How would you describe a leader?
Well, I think it goes back to what I was just referencing. I think a leader has the responsibility or the obligation, a true leader sees it as an obligation to understand all facets of a business, all facets of the individuals associated with the business, and the long-term vision of what we can do. So, right now I'm in the sleep industry, and what my goal is every day is to get someone convinced, because we clearly have the best technology in sleep, and everyone needs to know there's an alternative to CPAP. We have it. And if we can get people exercising it, because 80% of the people are undiagnosed, untreated. And so I need to get everyone to understand the value of this solution, so that I can go to my grandchild's high school graduation and I can go this, James Gandolfini, all these people who died in their sleep, Judge Scalia, their CPAP machine was at the side of their bed and they didn't put it on.
Wow.
And, but CPAP is a challenge. I'm a failed CPAP person, so that we need alternatives. And Inspire's got $8 trillion to put into marketing that says, okay, we've got this, but only 1 of 10 people are really eligible for that therapy, and it's expensive. Mine's a mouthpiece, and it moves the mandible forward, so it enables people to breathe. So I think what happens is and I'm impassioned about this because my current leader is a very motivational guy, and he has a good handle on the industry and where we need to go and where we are and where the industry is going. And when we make steps, we reach out to the organizations that are associated with the industry and say, here's what we're thinking of doing. Do you think we're on the right page? Would you like to join us on this mission? And every one of my team members, 100% are joined on this mission with me. Well, most of them. But so the leader just looks at things at the lowest level and at the highest level. And so you have to be a lot more diverse to be an effective leader, in my opinion. I'm not saying I'm smarter than any of the people. I'm just saying I'm willing to find out what I don't know. And that's just human life. That's the same with everyone. I mean, you need to understand where they're coming from and have a way to communicate with them to take them to their ultimate capability. I mean, I think it's an absolute obligation, and that's half the problem in the world, in my personal opinion. Nobody's called and asked me, unfortunately, except for you now. I was writing a book, and I'll tell you a funny story about that. Is I had started writing a book years ago when, the name of the book was "It's So Easy." And it was so easy just meant that, well, if you did use your 2 ears and one mouth and you did educate yourself on what was going on, that follow the path, let the heart understand where it wants to go and follow it. And so I had abandoned the book because I feel that generationally we have lost that kind of thinking. The whole sociology, psychology things, now it's more, what is the business solution depending on your title? What party are you with? All of this other bullshit that's irrelevant. And, and I've decided to re-engage my book and see if I can, include in it, this is an old man's view of the world. And you know what? It's not a bad place to live. And if we can get just a few converts, we can have a rippling effect across the globe.
Absolutely. I mean, it all comes from the heart, because there's been a lot of focus on just the logical mind, and you have to kind of have a holistic, view to it all. But that's great. But how would you say, because if you think of leadership, because I look at it holistically, being a leader in life. So if you remove the part of just it being business, but if you're looking business and life, how would you define a leader?
So, I hope that I'm a leader in just about everything that I do. I hope that I'm a leader for my family and an example and a model for not only my immediate family, but for my attached family. Mm-hmm. And as I mentioned, I coached basketball, and I tried to have an understanding of the abilities of people from infant. A funny story, a guy I had the kindergarten class was in, I was teaching them. I said, okay, you have to dribble up the court with your left hand, up right hand, and come back with your left. And some father said, who do you think you are, Bob Cousy? I'm like, Bob Cousy, I could tell the kid he has to do Tony flips here, and he'll do that, and he doesn't even know he's doing it. But at any rate, I try to be as much of a leader as I can in every facet of life. And I'm hoping more than ever that I can influence more than ever, because we need it more than ever. It's trying times out there. I'm scared for my grandkids. What is the world going to be like when I'm 6 feet under and they're dealing with idiots who have my title? I mean, that's redundant because I'm an idiot too. So, but
you're not.
It's a matter of just hope that you can make an impact with somebody, and to speak with them genuinely and hear what they're saying, and then try to understand what they're saying, and then impact it regardless of what you do. I mean, most of the things that I'm talking about are general in nature, not specific to business. I mean, business is, some people think that ultimately driving revenue and success and everything else is the bottom line. And one more thing that my father said, that he says, money may not be everything, but it puts a good deposit down on whatever is ahead of it. So I understand the need for that financial reward, but I believe that we as a company, our current company, I mean, we got here on passion and on emotion and on belief and on taking care of the next generation, et cetera, and so on. And, now we're public, and so we're a little bit more serious about ourselves. And so another reason why I had abandoned the book, but you know what? I've convinced myself, or you've convinced me more than anything, Pia, in analyzing my history and where I've come from and what has been my success and my formula, that we need it now even more so than I think we need it when I was writing it then. Then it was just like, the things plus. Now it's like, you're going to think that I'm so bizarre, but you know what? People are important. So.
Oh, yeah, anything in business. I mean, I like to say it starts and ends with a person selling or talking to another person, right? So even when you have an online business, unless it's a commodity that you just order, still in that flow, in the chain of business, you're still talking to a person, even if it is via a chat. And it's so important. I mean, it impacts everything, like, and how you see a business as well, right? So yeah, leadership is so important because it funnels down. So that's kind of my point, right? So
Yeah,
if you have happy people.
It's an obligation, Pia. It's not just something. I mean, everybody should be striving for that. And if not, well, leadership, it should at least be example.
Yeah.
And just to be an example or a model for people is really critical for me. And like I said, I've been so blessed in that so many people who did work for me have had just phenomenal successes. And it's quite an honor to be a part of that, assuming I am. And I assume that I am only because they call me and say, "How are you? What's going on?" They've thanked me, and so that's really nice. But I did feel it as an obligation.
Well, and passion is such an awesome energy, and I hear over and over what you're talking about is this desire to impact people in a good way. So speaking of energy, how would you explain energy when talking about a person having an energy of X, so to speak, from your perspective? How would you define energy, if you will, especially when it comes, I mean, both on and off work, I guess, right? So
Yeah, no, and most of my things will always be generic in its answer. Now, energy is a wonderful and dangerous tool. Energy, if you don't know what to do with energy and how to convert negative energy to positive energy, you're doomed. I mean, clearly you have a long journey ahead of you. And I feel sorry for you and your family who would be experiencing that. But energy is what makes it really happen. That and that's so tied so closely to passion. So you have passion and energy and belief in everything you do. You will impact people and you will change the world. And the Margaret Mead had this statement that said, don't ever underestimate what a small group of people can do to change the world, because after all, that's always how it has happened. And so I started a fund with some family members. I lost a nephew to a very rare cancer, and just a special gift to the world. He studied in China. He spoke Chinese over here. It was really, really amazing. And he got this really rare cancer. And if we didn't do something about it, then he just died and his life is forgotten. And so we started a fund called the Drew O'Donoghue Fund, which is for patients and families afflicted with this adrenal cortical carcinoma, which is a rare adrenal cancer. And we partnered with Memorial Sloan Kettering, as that's where they treated him most. But then the originator and the guy who knows the most about adrenal cancer is a guy by the name of Gary Hammer, Dr. Gary Hammer, out of the University of Michigan, and that's where we affiliated there. And we've now set up fellowships there. We've set up protocols. Just this weekend, I was at a wedding of this woman, Grace Dunn, who was a patient when we first started this whole thing. And she came to us and she got enrolled in our program through a doctor at Memorial Sloan Kettering, Dr. Diane Reading, one of the Diane Reedy. She's one of the most special people you could ever imagine. She's 3 years cancer free because of she got involved in this therapy.
Wow.
And she ended up joining our board. And then this weekend she married one of our board members. So now she's I mean, it was the coolest thing ever, but it was the perfect example of what we're talking about and the impact that we as individuals can have. And if I was just to let him die, and I need to give credit to Dr. Robert Kammer, who's out of Santa Barbara, California. Bob led many companies and was just there. And when I was sitting there talking to him about the situation with Drew, because he's all heart, this guy, he said to me, you need to start out an endowment. And I said, what's that? He says, you work for Nobel Biocare. This was at the time I was at Nobel. He says, nobody does more endowments than Nobel. And I said, well, just tell me what you know about them. The nice way of saying, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I came back and I saw my brother and sister-in-law and nephew, the family, direct family for them. And I said, we have to do this. This is something that we have to do. And now we're, 8-9 years in running. We have 2 events. We have a Christmas event and we have a golf event, and raised over $1 million and
Wow.
advanced the treatment of this and all. So, and Gary Hammer, Dr. Hammer, he thinks he thought of it, but he actually stole my line. That small group of people changing things, that was my line. Now he talks about it at every meeting as if like it's his. So Gary, if you ever see this thing, you stole my line. But anyway, it's the perfect example of what we're talking about, Pia, in that it's so simple. It is that easy to make a change. And this was just something that was selfish in that I couldn't just let go of this kid. I loved him immensely. I still do. I talk to him every day.
Yeah.
So let's take this situation and turn it into the most positive impact that we can make, because that's what he would have wanted.
Yeah.
And now it becomes more personalized. I'm in hospitals and talking with people about it. It's a lot different when you're talking about it as a cause or a business or something like that, but it was all raw. It was just came from the heart, and we followed the path.
How amazing. That talk about leaving a legacy, that's all I can say. I mean, your life has been filled with you contributing your greatness to other people and giving them tools early on from kindergarten, or not kindergarten, but the basketball kindergarten, yeah. And then on, and then taking it to creating this foundation as well. How amazing. That's really inspiring to me to just see how, and also like something I like to say that, when you're being yourself, right, you are who you are on and off work. So that kind of shows the full picture of Jerry, that it's not just the amazing leader that you are during work hours, but you are for your family and your community as well. So you're leaving a legacy. The day that you are 6 feet under, like you said, people are going to remember all the impact that you did. You're going to live on, so to speak, right? As with your wisdom.
I hope so. I mean, I genuinely do. I mean, I always think like after you go, like you hang around a little bit, you get to see how many people went to your funeral. And not that I'm that, that's a hell of a reward, because you're not there and you're like, oh, wow, I did well. So I guess I'm just trying to insulate the shock of like when you're dead and it's over. And I want, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to go to and see how many people were at my funeral. So I have to create it all now. But yeah, that was very kind what you said, Pia. But it's really just about people, and we're all just people, and we're all the same. I'm strong on diversity. I'm strong on power of the individual, and the rest is up to you what you do with it, whether it's business or personal.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I mean, I love this thing of I have work with leaders, and I know that the core driver with them all is to leave a legacy of success. But what that looks like is going to be different for different people. For you, it's the people, right? And that's the thing that is going to keep on giving and giving, because they're going to impart that wisdom to theirs, their friends, their families as they grow up, etc. Or like you mentioned with the example of the kid that came back and said,
Yeah.
basketball is not for you, you're 5'8", so to speak,
Oh
right?
my God. And it was weird because I was at a local bagel store, a deli, and he was standing at the door and he was leaning against the door, just staring at me. And I'm at the counter paying, and I'm looking over my shoulder, and I says, "Is this guy looking at me? Like, what the hell is going on here?" And so I get my stuff, and he never came over, and even though the eye contact was there, never came over. And then when I was leaving, with my coffee and my sandwich, I said, "Hey, how you doing?" And he says, "Good." And he said, "You know who I am?" I said, "I have no idea." I said, "I know you've been staring at me." And then he explained the story to me. I said, "Oh, well, thanks for sharing." But he could have been a star at 5'8" too if he wanted to be. But I didn't want to get into that with him,
Yeah.
because you can be a star regardless of your size and of your innate ability. The secondary things can be taught, like using your left hand, like doing these things, just to make you more effective. Like my goal was always just to get all the kids who played underneath me to be able to play in high school, so they'd experience that.
Yeah.
I don't know what percentage of them did. Probably rare, probably small, but I mean, a simple goal. And I'm not looking for you to go to the NBA.
Yeah.
Even the kids who I thought had a chance to go there, I wasn't anticipating that as a goal, because it's a circuitous path. But yeah, it's just that simple. It really is.
It's simple, but it's not always easy, right? As the saying
Oh,
goes.
it's not easy at all. It's not, believe me, it's not easy. And like I said, with leadership, the difference being that obligation to know the things that you have to know beyond what you have to know. Like, the CEO might think, "Oh, I have to know this, this, and this. And, I got my master's and I got this and I got that." No, a leader has to know a much more wide scale of issues, whether it's skill sets, whether it's industry knowledge, whether it's human knowledge, whatever it is. I mean, a leader has to know all of those things, and that's exhausting. I mean, all these books that I have all around here, it's all about that. It's all learning, like, okay, how can I be better? How can I listen better? And how can I not just listen to the words that I could reiterate what you just said, but how can I reiterate the words and talk about the passion that was instilled with it? That's important. Empathetic listening is very important. But you have to be able to understand the dull and the ignorant, as I said, because they're all part of this crazy world. And it is a crazy one.
It is. But that, to me, also, like, great leadership tap into the talents of their team. So whether it's your management team or your, whatever team, right? Because you don't have to know everything. I think you don't have to know everything as a leader. You need to have an awareness, but you need to also delegate and tap into the genius that you have around you, because it's not a solo show after all, right?
Well, in some companies, it almost is a solo show. So you may be a CEO and have these great meetings with everyone, and everyone's invited to it and attended to it. And, the bottom line is going to be whatever you decide, that's the answer. That's what a dictator does, So why do we bother having these meetings? I just assume, let me go out and make hay, I don't want to come and sit on the meeting and listen to all these people who are just repeating everything that you say to, and you don't have that emotional IQ that says, this guy's just repeating everything I'm saying. Someone's saying, "Oh, this guy knows what he's talking about." It's like, well, yeah, no shit. You just told him what to say. But anyway, so it's important for me, and then I hope I can be the leadership amongst the leadership group, to have them understand the obligations and the responsibilities and the tasks that are associated with it. Okay, you share all the stuff you know, great. I'll share all the stuff I know, great, and we'll be both better for it.
Absolutely. It's like the collective will make it all better. And what you
Totally.
described also, like with poor leadership, that's when you're being talked to, so to speak. And yeah, there's nothing worse when when your thoughts and ideas are being stolen and captured by someone and presented as their own thoughts and feelings, and you start listening, it's like, I recognize that. That's really good. And then the second thought is like, I recognize this. Oh man, I said this. But
Yeah.
but that's part of the journey. It's been interesting to me. One of my passions, why I'm passionate about leadership, is because I've experienced great leaders, and I've an experience, and the opposite as well. And how you feel, because even if our happiness is our own responsibility, in a business, it's interesting to me because you have a hierarchy. So you're not allowed to express yourself in the same way. So you have to kind of push yourself down. And if you're in an environment where you can't express yourself and it's seen as bad, that's what creates disengagement ultimately.
Yeah.
And where high performers leave, or you get laid off because you're an inconvenience, not because you're not good at what you're doing, but the leader can't handle competition, I guess.
Yeah.
It must be seen as, right?
Or antagonism or whatever that might be. It's whoops, sorry about that. I'll get it straightened out. But
Shifting in slightly from, well, it's still part of leadership. When you interview people and ultimately end up hiring someone for a position, what is it that you're looking for? Like, what are the important qualities in a person that you favor, so to speak?
yeah, it's a great question. I get stuck on this a lot because I really start at the core of the person. Like, are they a good person? Do they seem to have the energy and the passion to fulfill this mission? Have they done any research on the company to understand what we do? And can they apply some of that information to the answers on the interview? But it starts at core. So if I know that you're okay at the core, I can teach you anything because I can. But you have to you have to show a willingness to learn, which would be tested by saying, have you gone on our webpage? Have you checked anything? And then I try to get a meal with everyone before I hire them, so I can have those intimate moments to say, what are your long-term plans? Where do you want to go? Because I don't want to set them up on a bad path. And so they need to have that inner gold. You referenced that before, the inner gold, but it has to then be able to translate to effective tasks and appreciation and respect for what we're doing. Is grandpa going to the graduation important to you? Great, because I know I can get to you then. I think the key thing is that they just have a good work ethic, and they can demonstrate a good work ethic, and that they're basically good people. I remember interviewing this guy from Chicago, and he said, well, if we start, I'm going to have to start 2 weeks. I need at least 2 weeks. And I said, oh, really? Why is that? And he said, I'm going on a mission. Mm-hmm. And guy was going to Africa and went on a mission. So I said, I love you. You're hired. That's it. You're in. I said, I don't know how much I'm going to have to teach you, but I love you. And I mean, it can really be that simple. Now, again, my apologies to all the CEOs and everyone else is saying that, that's not it. Not that easy, blah, blah, blah. It is. But you're right. It's not that easy. It's very hard. And I ask a lot more qualifying questions. But so just to cover all the people that said I hired people and they knew that I shouldn't have hired them.
Yeah.
There's nobody who I shouldn't have hired. I would never hire them thinking of it. And that goes back to the whole honesty and transparency thing and the dictator thing. If you're going to hire this person, if you're not going to empower them, then what's the sense? If you don't have the confidence in them doing that for you, you're just going to have to do everything. So you have to be willing to accept that risk. Oh my God, And you have to also accept the responsibility and the accountability. I hired the wrong person. We all make mistakes, and mistakes are as much a part of life as anything, particularly in sales, because it means you're trying, that you're doing, and you may be doing it wrong. You may not be doing it right, and you may have the wrong fundamental skills to take that. And those are the honest conversations you have with people. But you can't bullshit everyone and say, okay, here we go. We're going to change the world. We're going to save the entire world, and then put it in the garbage can. It's just not fair.
What qualities do you think are important when you're building a team that you enjoy managing?
Honesty, trust. Because I work people hard. I ask a lot of them, but I'm being honest with them, and I'm trusting that they can accept it. I think that's the person that I hired who I can have that conversation with. So I'd say honesty and trust, and ultimately accountability will take care of the accountability side, because that's what you have a manager for, to assess the performance, to assess this. And then I believe it's our obligation and then say, okay, good person, what's wrong here? And can we change it? And then try, not just like, oh, your numbers are poor, you suck, you're gone. I don't believe in that at all. I believe that it's our responsibility. If you're going to take someone's life and the impact that it has on their family, and trust them, and let this become their vehicle to do all the things they want to do. And then if you make it great, if you don't, great too. No, that's wrong. That's bad. And
Yeah,
so
it doesn't build trust, for one. That's for sure.
no, it doesn't. And you have to have all of that. I mean, if I'm going to ask them to go extra hard, I have to believe in why they're going extra hard, and I have to be able to articulate that. And then I have no problem whatsoever asking for it. And that's what we had in Nobel. I mean, those people, coming into the quarter, it was just crazy what these people would do. Like, just crazy, because they believed.
Yeah.
And they knew that I had their back. And, I said, just come to me with anything that you have that we can do something with. And if we can't do it, we just have to say, thank you so much for the willingness to have that discussion with us. We just can't do it. So that next quarter, we can go back to them and say, okay, is there another path that we can take maybe to get that? And, you never just say, okay, forget it. It's not going to happen. You drop them down softly so you can come back and hit them over the head later.
No, that's true. I mean, like, isn't life in a way is a series of dialogues, isn't it? Right. So that goes for business too. As the saying goes in sales, no is just no for today. It doesn't mean that it is 6 months from now or 2 months from now or whatever. And you have to explore different options to ultimately serve the client, because it's not about just selling and everything and then walk away. I mean, both you and I have been in businesses where it's about building long-term relationships. So you want to make sure that you're serving their need, right?
100%, Pia. I mean, I think anything you're doing, you're building relationships. I mean, I believe that you take that all the way to, whatever you're doing. It's about commitment, relationships, honesty, transparency. I mean, all of those things are, we've said them over and over again, but they apply all the way down the line. Like, each step you have to do it. And if there are areas that you're deficient in, hire the right people to carry that same message into those deficient areas for you. And not one person has all the answers, although a lot of them think they do. They don't.
Absolutely. I mean, I like to say, like, even, like I'm certified as a coach in one modality among many called Clifton Strengths. But that's not what I was going to say. It was another modality. Someone else mentioned that. Well, it's tied together. So I have a talent called strategic, which is about seeing the big picture, down to the details, quickly finding paths, etc. Right? And it's a common talent that many people have. And then yet, I think it was Joe Dispenza who said that even when we have, the big picture, we only have access to 3% of the whole. Because if you think of it, we think that we know everything. It's not true. We know everything within our area of expertise, but the globe is big. There's so many realities coexisting, even in the cities where we live. So we only know a little. So, the more you can tap into the geniuses of other people, I think, the more well off you are. Because isn't that fun to just explore all the different options that are out there, whether it's business or life in general, right?
No, but I would say that, and this may apply more to the financial world or whatever. There's certain skills that you need to have, and the personal, the empathy, emotional skills and all aren't really that important. But they need to understand it's important to the company. They need to understand that that's what the company was built on. They need to understand that the individual whose pay we're messing with right now, that's serious. That's serious stuff, And so you can do the books and you could have everything nice and needy and everything else, but if you don't understand holistically what we're doing and where we want to go, we're all going to end up missing the boat, and that's tough.
Well, and that's part of having the conversation, right? So if you tap into your team and really utilize them, you have a better chance of getting the 360 at least of the areas that you operate within.
Well, if you can get it to be on 360, I'm all for that. That's pretty good. So,
well, as close as you can.
I'd be happy to go 180 and go from end to end. But if we can get more than 360, I love it. Give me the book. I'll get the book tomorrow.
Well, we all have blind spots. So what I mean is, like, when we build teams that have talents in the areas where we don't have an awareness, you create more of a 360. Not saying that it's right. You're still going to have, experiment. You're still going to experiment and make mistakes, etc. But you have a bigger chance of at least tapping into what it's like. So, like you mentioned, building diverse teams in every possible way. So you learn from each other.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think we referenced this earlier. Ultimately, it comes down to people.
Yeah,
and it does. It does, and leadership even more so, because you're relying 100% on the people skill to take you to where you have to go, and that's why if you can't trust it, it was a bad hire.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's something you can't live without?
Love.
That's so
appreciation, true. Respect. Those are things to me that are just, part of what makes me who I am and what it's all about. If someone doesn't respect me, somebody doesn't appreciate me, they certainly can't love me. And so, so love becomes all encompassing, but I guess probably respect and appreciation, because I don't want necessarily, the CFO to love me, but I want him to respect what my challenges are and understand my commitment to the company that he's putting a nice bow on. I'm not going to tie the perfect bow, but I'm gonna extend the heart. That's for sure.
That's awesome.
I mean, again, it's part of that. It's also a simple thing. I mean, we all need that. I can't imagine there's anyone that doesn't need that, and I'm sorry for that person in advance. But love, emotion, respect. I mean, all of those things, appreciation, all of those things are the one thing. If you have enough of that, it's kind of what my father always referred to as money. If you have enough of it, you can put a good down payment on it.
Yeah.
If you have enough of all those previous streets, you can put a good emotional down payment on surviving the challenge you're going through right now. So, and sometimes, great. You learn that through adversity a lot of times, on, things that you just are thinking, there's no way I could do that. I see things on television or whatever, and I'm saying, oh my God, that's atrocious. I could never survive that. But if I have those things like love and respect and appreciation, I can survive it.
Yeah. This kind of ties into what you were talking about right now, but if you could give everyone around the world a message they would have to hear, what would that be, in addition to love, if you will?
Kindness, consideration, understanding. Like I've talked a lot about understanding even the dull and the ignorant. It's important that we respect all, and perhaps that can elevate them. Um, but kindness, I mean, a random act of kindness ripples and ripples and ripples. I believe that. I think it's kind of like a karma thing. And that's why I went through so much in when we discussed doing this, because it's not like, oh, make sure you get all these things entered into this report, which is a lot of CEOs who may be watching this or whatever. You may not want to show this to them, because it goes way, way beyond that. And if they're not prepared for that, if they just think it happens by them setting a series of rules and people then living and dying by those rules, it's not going to work. I'll show you. I have nothing else. I have the age to prove that I've been around long enough to know.
Yes. So what do you know for sure to tie into that?
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
I know that if you listen and you respond with kindness and consideration, that you're okay. We're all okay.
Who inspires you to be better, and why?
Well, my children for sure, and my wife, of course. I can't forget my wife. Those are people that inspire me. But I worked with somebody just recently, and he was a very kind soul, and he inspires me totally. My nephew, who's dead, at least physically, he inspires me. Because he was such an achiever, and it was all for the good of people and all. So, his parents and his brother inspire me, because they're the happiest people in the room.
Wow.
I could cry in a heartbeat just saying his name. Yet they carry on with strength and dignity and compassion. It's really remarkable. So, if you want to learn anything, reach out to the O'Donoghue family, Sean, Lisa, and Patrick, and that's a formula for success.
Awesome. What is one thing that you've done recently that you would like to be acknowledged for?
I'm not an acknowledged guy. I don't know. I mean, I think I've worked hard. I want to be appreciated for the work that I've done. The flexibility that I've shown in working under exhausting situations and everything else, and the willingness to go through that. So I'm just hoping that other people are looking back and feel that they got that from me, and they're appreciating that. So that's probably the biggest appreciation I could ask for, is that they just recognize that I went to the core to get what they wanted delivered. It's not necessarily what I wanted at the time, but what they wanted. So I'm the least common denominator in the whole formula. And I mean that genuinely.
Absolutely. And I can second that one, because you are someone, as I mentioned in the beginning, that you make people feel special, and you connect, I connected deeply with you. And I'm also like a connector, like I go deep, and not everyone can handle going deep, so to speak, and going with the flow and just having in-depth conversations that you and I used to have and still have, because that's the thing. Like, we haven't spoken in a couple of years, but we just reconnect whenever we talk, and that's what I appreciate.
Yeah, like what did you do this weekend? It's like I couldn't believe, after speaking with you, I don't know, I could have talked for hours on that call, because it was just so nice reuniting with an old friend. And and there are old acquaintances and there are old friends. And Pia, you're an old friend, and those people, I just cherish the moments I have with them.
Yeah.
because it's different. It's not everybody does go that deep, and that's okay. I mean, but it's nice to meet someone who does, because you can talk differently to them.
Yeah, it's just fun because I love exploring and just going wherever the conversation goes, if you will. So uh this ties in a little, and I know we're a little over time here, but what's something that in your life that you're proud of? I would imagine obviously your kids and grandkids is part of that, but what else? Is there anything else?
Yeah, I think my accomplishment, I think, I think I've done fairly well in almost every company I've been with. And it's only because I gave everything I had, followed their vision, and so I've accomplished a lot. But I think most of all is I think that I've touched a whole bunch of people, and I don't know that for a fact. And I hope that I have, at least, because, like I said to start this out, this is not for me. This is for all the people that enabled me to be me,
Yeah.
and believed in that. And so, and I hope that continues for years. And if anybody from the past sees this, give me a call. And if you're not one of those special people, I'll still be nice to you, and you'll think you are. But no, only kidding. It's I have a tough time with that question. I mean, because I just want to be appreciated in general, and I don't want to, if I ask you for it and you give it to me, then it doesn't mean anything to me. It's for that evoked expression of appreciation, love, respect, etc., and so on, that warms my heart. That captures me completely.
That's
So
awesome. Do you have any final words? Is there anything that you want to say before we go?
I just like to reiterate, that number one, it's not only wonderful getting back together with you, Pia. I've enjoyed your company, for just years and years, and it was nice to catch up with it. But that extension of that thinking goes to all the people that I worked with, and I hope you're not still carrying, not you, but them, that they're not carrying, the fights or the one thing that I didn't say right, because I say a lot, and it all doesn't come out exactly as it's supposed to, but it's never ill-spirited or evil-minded. And so what I've expressed through this conversation is an appreciation for people who I've worked with, and my hope and love for all. So that's it, really.
Thank you, Jerry. And I don't think that anyone misses that. You wear your heart on your sleeves, so to speak. And that's one of the things that I really appreciate with you, that there is no bullshit kind of thing. And when there is authenticity in a leader and a friend, then people can be themselves. And that's what creates success ultimately in every possible way, isn't it?
Yeah, it's scary to me that seems to be such a unique thing, because that should be an innate thing, really. And people need to try to practice that or learn that more if they're not. That everyone's opinion, you don't have to agree with it, but it would be good if you could look a little bit further to try to understand it. And if you can't understand it, that's okay. And I'm certainly not going to get into political conversations at this point, but there's just so much shit in the world. It's just amazing to me that people aren't thinking this. And like I said, this was my motivation to get back to writing my book, because I only need one person at a time to say, oh, or that one pearl that someone gets. And it was worth it then.
So when is that book coming, Jerry?
Oh, I don't know. I have it on a hard drive and I can't find the hard drive.
Oh,
Well, organization may not have been my best skill. Like you say, it's all on the sleeve, and I'll figure it out. I'll find it, because I don't throw anything out.
yeah.
Let somebody else throw it out.
I look forward to reading it. I'm sure it's going to be something really awesome. So thank you so much for your time, Jerry. I really, really appreciate having this conversation with you. And goodbye for now. Thank
Goodbye
you
for now.
for
Okay.
your time. And Yes, let's see. We'll continue our conversations offline. So thank
I
you,
look forward
everyone.
to that. Yep. Have a great one. So long, everyone.